Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Then we're going to continue, inshallah ta'ala, today with the reading of Al-Mulakhas al-Fiqhi min Ulum al-Imam al-Albani, the summarized fiqh based on the works of Imam al-Albani by Abu Islam Sulaiman Mubarak rahimahullah ta'ala. Rahimahum Allah ta'ala. May Allah have mercy on both of them. The link, as always, is in the description, or in the chat, rather. So you can join with us and read, or make corrections, or ask a question, whatever the case might be. I'll start until Abu Muhammad or someone comes in, inshallah ta'ala. Al-Fasl al-Sabi'. Al-Fasl al-Sabi'. The seventh section. He says, Yusannu inda dukhuli Yusannu inda dukhuli lil khala'i. It is the sunnah. Yusannu. It is the sunnah. Inda dukhuli. When entering lil khala'. When entering into the place where you relieve yourself. Qawlu bismillah. To say bismillah before you enter. At the time of entering. Before you enter, say bismillah. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ithi. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from the male and the female jinn. وَإِذَا خَرَجَ قَالَ. And when he comes out, he should say, غُفْرَانَكَ. I seek your forgiveness. غُفْرَانَكَ, meaning your forgiveness, meaning I seek your forgiveness. وَالذِّكْرُ اللَّهِ لَا يَحْرُمُ فِي مَوْضِعِ قَضَاءِ الْحَاجَةِ. And mentioning Allah or remembering Allah is not prohibited in the area of relieving oneself. Meaning, you can say Bismillah before making wudu. You can say Ghufranak when you lift your clothes up or let your thobe down, your izar down. When you let your clothes down, lift your clothes up, whichever the case might be from relieving yourself, you can say Ghufranak. And you can say when you take one step to the side, and this is what the Sheikh he says in this discussion of this issue. And then when you're done with your need, then you step one step to the side, and there's the sink where you need to make wudu. And before making wudu, you say Bismillah. So this is not prohibited inside of this area. This is not prohibited inside of this area. Because the bathrooms today are not like the bathrooms of before, are not like the places where they used to relieve themselves at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Rather, it was just a low place where they used to go and relieve themselves. And so in that area, you would not do it because that's all it's for. As for now, when there's tile and there's a floor and there's a sink and all of these things are next to each other, then this is permissible. وَالذِّكْرُ اللَّهِ لَا يَحْرُمُ فِي مَوْضِعِ قَضَاءِ الْحَاجَةِ. And remembering Allah, mentioning Allah is not prohibited in the places where one relieves oneself. Of course, while relieving yourself, this is different. Here he says, fi mawda'i, in the place, not during. وَيَسْتَطِرُ عِنْدَ قَضَاءِ الْحَاجَةِ. And he should conceal himself while relieving himself. He doesn't do it in front of others. Yastatiru, to have a sutra, to have a satar, right? To have something that protects, something that covers and conceals him when relieving himself or herself. وَيَجُوزُ الْبَوْلُ عِنْدَ الْحَاجَةِ قَائِمًا. And it's permissible to relieve oneself to urinate if there is a need to do so standing. قائما. ويجوز, it's permissible, البول, urination, عند الحاجة, if there's a need, قائما, standing. ويحرم استقبال القبلة واستدبارها عند قضاء الحاجة, and it is prohibited, استقبال, to face, like the word qibla, واستدبار, and to have one's back to something, from the root of da bal ra, adal ba ra, istidbar, to face the qibla or to have your back towards the qibla. Inda qada al haja, it is prohibited to do this. It is prohibited to face the qibla when using the bathroom, and it is prohibited to have your back to the qibla when using the bathroom, when relieving yourself. Fil hadari was safari. This is while a person is a resident at home, right, and in his city, was safar, and while traveling. Wa fil bunyani wa fil fada. And this is inside the houses and outside in the open areas, al fada. So it's prohibited to face the qibla or turn your back towards the qibla when relieving oneself while at home, meaning while you're in your city or while you're traveling, if you're in a building or if you are outside. Right? طيب, who's with us? Masao. Maybe he has a question. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yeah, I'm just joining from here. No question
Okay.
yet. Jazakallah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Allah yabarak feek.
Yeah.
طيب. So this is something that the Sheikh says. Now, many people, they say, many of the fuqaha, they say, it's okay to do it inside a building or if there is a wall between you and the qibla and so on and so forth. The Sheikh here, his position is it's prohibited. And the end of this section is going to give us some insight into that issue. So I'm not going to discuss it too much right now, because the last thing the Sheikh says is a strong evidence for this. He says, وَيَحْرُمُ الْإِسْتِنْجَاءُ بِالْيُمْنَى, and it's prohibited to clean your private parts with a rock, or istinja means to use a rock or paper or whatever it is to clean your private parts, bilyumna, with your right hand. Likewise, this is istinja as with water. Istijmar would be the same thing. That's the rock or the paper or so on. Istinja as water. Istijmar is with the rock or the paper or whatever else, right? That's permissible. It's prohibited to do this, however, to clean your private part with your right hand. وَيَحْرُمُ قَضَاءُ الْحَاجَةِ فِي طَرِيقِ النَّاسِ, and it's prohibited to relieve oneself in the pathways of the people, meaning in the roads, in the streets, in the sidewalks, the places where people travel along. أَوْ ظِلِّهِمْ, or in their shade, in the shade where the people take rest. You cannot urinate underneath a tree where the people go and take rest. If someone might come and sit there, you've now prevented them from being able to use that tree for shade. أو في الموارد. Mawrid is the singular, mawarid is the plural. And mawrid or mawarid are the watering places, a well, a lake, right? A river, a stream, wherever the people go to get their water from. Aw fil juhri, or in holes. If there's a hole in the ground, you're not supposed to urinate in it or relieve yourself, period, in that hole. This is where the jinn might be, right? It's prohibited. Aw fil mustaham, or in the bathhouses. Bathhouses are different than what we have When we say the bathroom today, when they say bathroom back then, it meant like a public swimming pool inside or something. Al mustaham. Wala yujzi'u. And it is not correct. It is not accepted. It is not, uh, you have not fulfilled what is a duty upon you. Al istinja'u. If you were to clean yourself, bi aqal min thalathati ahjar. With less than bi aqalli, not aqalla. This should be a kasra here. Bi aqalli min thalathati ahjar. Not ashjar, ahjar. It's not permissible, it's not acceptable for you to make istinja with less than 3 stones or pieces of paper or so on. O biroth, or with dung, animal dung, right? O azmin, or a bone. Azm is food for the jinn. Roth is dung of animals, the feces of animals. It's not permissible. It gets hard. You can pick it up. Your hands won't necessarily get dirty. This is something that people who live on farms and so on, they've been picking up and moving. They use it for fuel. They use it for many things. Here, the Sheikh is saying it's not acceptable to make istinja with less than 3 stones, or to make it with dung, or to make it with bones. And here the Sheikh, he goes to explain. Well, I'll read the section first and see if we can figure out why does he say this. He says وَيَحْرُمُ, and it's prohibited, al-busaqu. Al-busaq is to spit. Al-busaq is to spit. إِلَى الْقِبْلَةِ مُطْلَقًا. It's prohibited to spit towards the qibla unrestrictedly. سواء في المسجد أو في غيره, whether that's in the masjid or other than the masjid. You cannot spit towards the qibla. وسواء داخل الصلاة أو خارجها, or, and regardless if it is inside the salah or outside of the salah. If it's inside of the salah or outside. Most of us, we don't find ourselves spitting in the masjid today, right? Because we have carpet and this and that. Back then they had sand and they would have to spit. They would have to blow their nose. They didn't have Kleenexes laying around. They didn't have tissues and on rolls and so on and so forth. And if they needed to spit or do something, then they would lift up their foot and they would spit under it and bury it, even in the masjid during salah. And one time the Prophet ﷺ saw some, I believe it's sputum. He saw some spit, some sputum on the wall in the masjid, and a woman in his face was angry because someone had spit towards the qibla and left it inside the masjid on the wall, the filth on the wall. And the woman who was responsible for cleaning the masjid came up and cleaned it and wiped it off and perfumed it in front of the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in front of all the people. This woman came up and did this. There's many benefits in that story there. However, it's prohibited to spit towards the qibla, whether you're in the masjid or outside of the masjid, whether you're in salah or outside of salah. Why did the Sheikh bring this? Does anybody have an idea?
No.
Okay, if we go back in the chapter, everything in the chapter that he's spoken about really is about the etiquettes of using the bathroom. Adab al-khala, right?
Yes.
The etiquettes of using the bathroom. And that's what we'll call this chapter, inshallah. Adab al-khala, the etiquettes of using the bathroom. So it's sunnah to enter and to say Bismillah. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ith. And when you come out, say Ghufranak, right? You can mention Allah's name in the place where you relieve yourself. So you have to say Ghufranak. You have to say Bismillah before wudu. You should cover yourself, and you can urinate standing up if there's a need to do so. You can't face the qibla or turn your back towards the qibla if you're relieving yourself. Faddal. Okay. This is why the Sheikh, he said this about al-busaq, the spitting right now. If it's impermissible to spit towards the Qibla, if you're inside the masjid or outside the masjid, if you're in salah or outside of salah, if you're outside and the Qibla is ahead of you, you cannot spit ahead of you. You have to spit to your left or your right or something like this underneath your foot. You cannot spit towards the Qibla. It's inside or outside of the masjid, inside salah or outside of salah.
Yeah.
So if I cannot spit in a building or outside of the building, or I cannot, if I cannot spit towards the Qibla, what makes you think I can urinate or defecate towards the Qibla? Whether I'm in the building or outside of the building. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So this is his dalil. And he talks about the hadith with the Sahaba. They went to Sham and they found that the Christians had built bathrooms in there and they used to seek Allah's forgiveness. Why would they seek Allah's forgiveness? It's a sin. It's not permissible. So this is why the Sheikh brought this up about spitting. طيب.
جزاك الله خير.
الله يبارك فيك. الفصل الثامن, the 8th فصل, section. فروض الوضوء في قوله تعالى فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين. So the obligations of wudu, the obligatory matters of wudu are found in the statement of the Most High, and wash your faces and your hands up to the elbows and wipe your heads and wash your feet up until the ankles. Right? This is where you can find what is obligatory to do in the wudu. What is fard in the wudu? Washing the face, washing the hands up until the elbow, wiping the head, and washing the feet up until the ankles. And why do we say washing? In case someone's saying it doesn't say washing again. Okay, when Allah says فَغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ, this is the maf'ulun bihi. What do you wash? Your faces. And it's got a fatha there because it's mansub. Then he says وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ, and your hands, because it is the maf'ul bihi thani, the second object of the verb. إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, up to your ankles. وَامْسَحُوا, and wipe bi ru'usikum. This ba causes it to be. So this goes to the mash. Then he says وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ. وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ. The fact that this has a fatah here again and not a kasra shows that this is for the ghusl. Right? Okay. However, there is another qira'ah. There is an authentic, sound, reliable qira'ah. I believe it's Warsh, but I'm not sure. Where it says arjulikum, and wipe your feet. And this is when meaning over the socks. The tafsir of the Sahaba means to wipe over the socks. Tayyib? But not wiping over the feet as the Rawafid do. Tayyib. So this ayah from Surah Al-Ma'idah tells us the obligatory or the fard issues of wudu. Then he says, وَنِيَّةُ رُكْنٌ, and the niyyah is a pillar. The intention is a pillar. وَيَجِبُ تَسْمِيَةُ قَبْلَ الْوُضُوء, and it is obligatory to mention Allah's name, to say Bismillah before wudu. At-tasmiyah means to say Bismillah. Al-basmala means to say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
Okay.
Tayyib, just so you know this.
Thank you. Okay.
At-tasmiyah is to say Bismillah. Al-basmala is to say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So it's obligatory to say Bismillah. Before wudu, we don't say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We say Bismillah. That's what the Prophet ﷺ taught us. Then he continues. He says, وَيُكْرَهُ الْإِسْرَافُ فِي الْوُضُوء. And it is disliked to waste. Israf is to be wasteful in wudu, meaning to waste water. To have the water on full blast, to leave it on while you're adjusting yourself and so on and so forth is disliked. وَيُسَنُّ الْمُعَاوَنَةُ عَلَى الْوُضُوء. And it's the sunnah to help in wudu, meaning for me to pour water for you and for you to pour water for me. It's the sunnah. Now we have the Hanafiya, the faucets, so we really don't need it. But if we're ever out and we just have to use a water bottle or something like this because we're traveling and we're somewhere where we don't have running water like that easy for us, then it's the sunnah to help one another in making wudu. وَيُبَاحُ الْوُضُوءُ مِنْ مَاءِ الْبَحْرِ. And it's permissible to make wudu from the water of the sea. وَيُسَنُّ قَبْلَ الْوُضُوء سِوَاكٍ. And it's the sunnah before wudu to use the miswak. It's the sunnah before wudu to use the miswak. وَغَسْلُ الْكَفَّيْنِ sunnah. And washing the two hands before making wudu is a sunnah. Where do we get the sunnah from? Because the fard is in the ayat. وَغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ. Wash your faces. وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ. And washing your hands up until the elbows. So Allah didn't start out with this. And we know when we make wudu, we say Bismillah. We wash our hands 3 times right, 3 times left. Then we wash our face 3 times. And then we wash our hand from the hand to the elbow. An important point that we need to notice here is what some people do is that when they wash their hand, they say Bismillah, they wash their right hand 3 times, they wash their left hand 3 times, then they wash their water in their mouth and nose and wash their face 3 times. And then when it's time to wash their arm, they only wash from the wrist to the elbow because they think they've already washed their hand. However, the hand in the beginning is only a sunnah, while the hand and after the face is an obligation. It's an obligation. So you must wash your hand again. As he says, وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ. طيب. وَيُسَنَّ قَبْلَ الْوُضُوءِ السِّوَاكِ وَالْغَسْلُ الْكَفَّيْنِ sunnah. It's the sunnah to wash your hands 3 times, especially when waking up from sleep at night because you don't know where your hands have been, right? وَالْمَضْمَضَةُ وَالْإِسْتِنْشَاقُ. Al-madmada is when you take water into your mouth. Well-istinshaq is to take water into your mouth and swish it around. And istinshaq is to take water into your nose. Well, istinthar is to blow water out of your nose. Fard. So to al-madmada, wal istinshaq, wal istinthar, fard. All these 3 things are obligatory. وَيَصِلُ بَيْنَ الْمَضْمَضَةِ وَالْإِسْتِنْشَاقِ. And the person should connect between the madmada, the taking the water in the mouth, and the taking the water into the nose. They should join together with that. فَيَأْخُذُ نِصْفَ الْغَرْفَةِ لِفَمِهِ وَنِصْفَهَا لِأَنْفِهِ. So he takes half of a handful, a gharfa. A gharfa is a handful, like this, 1 handful. He takes half of it in his mouth and half of it in his nose. وَيَسْتَنْشِقُ بِالْيُمْنَى. And he takes water into his mouth with his right hand. وَيَسْتَنْثِرْ بِالْيُسْرَى. And he blows it out with his left hand. فَالْمَضْمَضَةُ وَالْإِسْتِنْشَاقُ يَكُونَانِ بِغَرْفَةٍ وَاحِدَةٍ. So the madmada, they're taking the water into the mouth, and the istinshaq, they're taking the water into the nose. That takes place with one handful. 3 times, right? One handful, 3 times. Many of us, we learn when we make wudu, we wash our mouth 3 times and we rinse our nose 3 times. But rather, the sunnah is to wash your mouth and nose and then do that 3 times. وَيُبَالِغُ فِي
Sheikh,
الْإِسْتِنْشَاقِ. تفضل.
Ustaz, can you repeat again? The sunnah way is to wash your mouth, nose, again, mouth,
The
nose,
sunnah
wash.
is to take,
Mhm.
here he says, yasilu bain al madmadati wal istinshaq, that he gathers together between, or he joins the taking of the water in the mouth and the nose. فَيَأْخُذُ نِصْفَ الْغَرْفَةِ لِفَمِهِ. So he takes half of his handful for his mouth, وَنِصْفَهَا لِلْأَنْفِ, and half of it for his nose. وَيَسْتَنْشِقُ بِالْيُمْنَى وَيَسْتَنْثِرُ بِالْيُسْرَى. So he takes the water into his mouth with his right, into his nose with his right, and he blows it out with his left. فَالْمَضْمَضَةُ وَالْإِسْتِنْشَاقُ يَكُونَانِ بِغَرْفَةٍ وَاحِدَةٍ. So the madmada, the taking the water into the mouth, and the istinshaq, the taking the water into the nose, they take place with one handful. So you fill your hand up with water, you sip half of it in your mouth, the other half in your nose, and you blow it out. And you do that 3 times.
Okay.
Many of us, like I said, when we first learn wudu, we just take water.
Yeah.
And then we take water in the nose.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing right now. Yeah. I just put 3 times on my mouth, and after, if I finish my mouth, I go to my nose. That's why I ask clarification.
This is permissible.
Mhm.
This is permissible because the thing is to take water into the mouth and the nose 3 times. However, the sunnah is to join between the two of them. So take a handful of water, take half of the handful in your mouth, the other half in your nose, while you splish it around, and then blow it out. Spit it out and blow it out. Right?
I didn't know
and
that.
then do that 3 times. It's a
Thank
little
you.
bit difficult. Number 1 is difficult to get used to remember. And number 2 is difficult maybe to have enough water in your hand to do so 3 times because you have to get used to it. But this is the sunnah. And once you get used to it, you find that it's much better.
Okay, thank you. Jazakallah.
Otherwise, you probably find yourself just barely taking water in your nose and spitting it out right away. While if you do it like this, you take water in your mouth and you begin rinsing it around. Then you take it in your nose. Then you spit the water out of your mouth. And then you blow it out of your nose. You find that the water has had more time in your nose and you get rid of more, impurities or filth or boogers, whatever you want to call it, from your nose.
Okay, see. Thank you.
Then the sheikh, he says, وَيُبَالِغُ فِي الْإِسْتِنْشَاقِ. And he should go not overboard, because overboard is the wrong word, but he should go to the extreme, not be an extremist, but go to the extreme when taking water into the nose. Not just take a little water and barely touch it inside the nose, although this is permissible. If the water touches inside the nose, it's permissible, and Allah knows best. But the Prophet ﷺ told us to nubalig fil istinshaq, to go to an extreme in sucking the water into the nose and the sinuses. And this is how you can clear your nose and prevent yourself from many sicknesses and illnesses or ailments. Go overboard, go to an extreme, go do it a lot. Illa an yakuna sa'iman, except if you're fasting. If you're fasting, then you don't do it to a great extent because you might swallow the water, right? But if you do go overboard forgetfully or whatever, and you swallow some water while fasting, this does not break wudu, right? Unless you intend to swallow it, that'd be different. وَغَسْلُ الْوَجْهِ فَرْضٌ, and washing the face is an obligation. Washing the face is an obligation. So far, the niyyah is a rukn. It's wajib. It's wajib, the tasmiyah. Right? It's sunnah, ghasl kafain. It's sunnah to wash the two hands.
Yeah.
And then it's a fard. Al-madmada wal-istinshaq wal-istinthar. This is fard. And ghasl al-wajh is fard. Washing the face is a fard. وَيُسَنُّ تَخْلِيلُ اللِّحْيَةِ الْكَثَّةِ وَأَمَّا مَنْ كَانَتْ لِحْيَتُهُ خَفِيفَةً فَيَجِبُ تَخْلِيلُ فِي حَقِّهِ. It's the sunnah to rake your fingers. This is called takhleel. To rake your fingers through the beard. If the beard, al-lihyatul katha, the beard is thick and big and thick and full, then it's the sunnah to run your fingers through the beard. وَمَنْ كَانَتْ لِحْيَتُهُ خَفِيفَةً, but whoever has a small, thin, light beard, فَيَجِبُ التَّخْلِيل فِي حَقِّهِ, then it's obligatory to make the takhleel. It's obligatory to go through and rub the skin and go through the hair to the skin. But if you have a big beard, then you don't have to. It's just the sunnah and not an obligation.
Right.
والغسل اليدين إلى المرفقين ومسح الرأس كله فرض. Here he says, and washing the hands, the two hands up until the elbows, and wiping the head, all of it is fard. So washing the hands to the elbows is fard, as you got the ayat above. Also, wiping the head, all of it is fard. And the sheikh goes on inside of his discussion of this, and he says that we find that, for example, some people like the Shafi'is, those from Somalia and Kenya and like this, those people claim to follow the Shafi'i madhab, they just do this with their head. They do this, right? They just barely wipe a piece of their head, right? They'll go like this or like this, like they don't want to mess up their hair or something, right? And you don't find them wiping their whole head. And they'll go to the fact that they'll use the ayat, because a Shafi'i, he used the ayat, that he says this ba doesn't mean the entirety. So the sheikh says, likewise, the ba doesn't negate the entirety. So the ba doesn't mean the whole head, but it doesn't not mean the whole head. And the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which came to clarify the Quran for us and to give the details of the Quran for us, it describes what this bat means, and that means the whole head. This is the statement of Shaykh al-Albani. So while the ayat, the bat in the ayat can linguistically, Shafi uses the linguistic meaning of this bat, right? This bat could mean part of it. It can mean part of it, but it doesn't necessarily mean only part of it. So it can mean this or it can mean that. We can't say that it only means one or the other. So what do? Can we do this or do that? The Sheikh says no. The sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ came to describe this Quran, came to give us the details of this bat, and the details that the Prophet ﷺ gave us of this bat is to wipe from the head, from the front to the back, and the back to the front, or to wipe from the back to the front and then the front to the back, or to wipe one side and one side, but to wipe the whole head.
Okay.
So he says, Shaykh al-Albani, وَمَأْسُ الرَّأْسِ كُلِّهِ فَرْض, and wiping the whole head is an obligation. وَيَمْسَحُ بِيَدَيْهِ مُقَدِّمَةَ رَأْسِهِ. So he wipes with his two hands the beginning of his head. ثُمَّ يَذْهَبْ بِهَا إِلَى قَفَاهُ. The qafa is the neck, where your hairline stops. So he goes with his two hands to the back of the neck, the nape of the neck. ثم يردها, then he returns them in his hands إلى المكان الذي بدأ منه. So then he returns to the front, the place where he started from. Right? And then here, the Sheikh, he also has another opinion, which is strange according to most people in fiqh. وَيُسَنُّ الْمَسْحُ ثَلَاثًا. And it is the sunnah to wipe the head 3 times. And the Sheikh, he says, أحيانا. أحيانا.
Okay.
Right? أحيانا. Sometimes. Sometimes.
Okay.
This is due to the hadith of Uthman radiallahu anhu, which is inside of Sunan Abi Dawood, and the Sheikh graded it Sahih in one place and Hasan in another. Right?
Okay.
And he was asked, okay, if I'm going to wipe my head 3 times, do I renew the water every time? Or do I just wipe 3 times with the same water? He said, no, you renew the water in your hands 3 times. So you take water and you splash it off like you normally do, and you do so 3 times, but not wiping 3 times with the same water. طيب. ويمسح الأذنين بماء الرأس. And he wipes his ears, his 2 ears, with the water of his head, meaning he doesn't have to get new water. He wipes his head, and then whatever water is left on his fingers, he wipes his ears. وغسل الرجل.
Ustaz, for the ears, only 1 time is sufficient, not 3 times.
Well,
very easily. For the
if
ears.
you're gonna wipe your head 3 times, then you wipe your head and your ears 3 times.
Okay. What I'm doing is I wipe my head 1 time and my ears 3 times.
If you do it once, if you do it 3 times, like this, right?
Okay, yes, I can.
وغسل الرجلين فرض. And washing the feet, and I'm going to add here, like the ayat says, إلى الكعبين, to wash them up to the ankle. Fard is an obligation. وإن كان له عضو زائد. And this is a strange thing that I got from the Sheikh, and I can see it. Being wallahi, I've never seen this in the book of fiqh, but I haven't read a million books of fiqh or anything like this. He says, وإن كان له, and if he has عضو زائد, an extra member, يغسل ذلك العضو, then he washes that member. So what if a person is born with 3 hands, 3 arms? A person is born with 3 arms. For like they talk about how a person is a twin, and then he takes on his twin. He's born with 3 arms. Allah says, wash 2 hands. Which 2 hands do I wash? No, you wash all 3 hands. What if you're born with 3 legs or 3 feet? Some people might have 2 feet on 1 leg. How it's born, it could happen. What do? You wash that extra body part as well. Subhanallah.
Subhanallah. I never thought about Subhanallah.
The Sheikh is thorough, mashallah.
I never thought about it. Subhanallah.
فإن كان له 3 أرجل, so if he has 3 legs, 3 feet, يغسلها كلها, he washes all of them. ويبدأ باليمين في الوضوء, and he starts with the right in wudu. ويسن الوضوء مرة ومرتين وثلاثا, and it's the sunnah in wudu to do it 1 time, 2 times, or 3 times. The fard is 1, the sunnah is 3, and it's permissible to do 2. فمن زاد على هذا, and whoever did more than this, meaning they washed the body part more than 3 times or wiped more than 3 times, فقد أساء وتعدى وظلم, then he has basically done wrong and gone overboard and been oppressive. He has done wrong. He has gone and exceeded the bounds.
Okay, Ustaz, if you are in doubt, like you want to do 3, but you are in doubt if you did 1 or 2, and you are in doubt.
This is from the waswas of shaitan. If you keep listening to this, then eventually you're going to be, did I wash my face first? I'm not sure I did. And you're going to go start over again and again and again. And then the waswas is going to come into your salat. Did I make takbir? Did I make wudu? I don't know. I need to go make wudu. And you find some people, they're in prayer and they make takbir takbir al-ihram 5-10 times because they have this waswas. Don't listen
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah,
Don't
happening
listen to
some.
it.
Yeah. And here
Well,
in the wudu,
go
because he
ahead.
said if you faman zada ala haza fakat asa wa ta'adda wa zalama. Like
Right.
if I have shak, I have maybe I do 1 or 3. I just go for the little. Is it okay, right? Or you
Just yeah, and ignore it. Eventually, Shaitan is going to leave you. If he finds he
okay,
can
okay.
play with you, he's going to keep playing with you.
Okay.
And if you find
Jazakallah.
and you say, man, no, I did it once or twice, or that's it. I'm gonna and focus. What are you doing in your wudu? I mean, you how long does it take you to wash your hand? You know that you forget. If you forget like this is definitely Shaitan playing with you. You're not focusing. You're doing something else. You're
Okay.
watching a video on your phone while you make wudu or something. I don't know, right?
Yeah. And
Then he says, well, and this is another strange opinion of the sheikh. Although it's not strange if you read other people in fiqh, but it's strange from the common opinion, I guess, amongst the people today. وَلَا يَجِبُ التَّرْتِيبُ فِي الْوُضُوءِ. And it is
oh,
not obligatory to do the wudu in order. A
Okay.
tartib in order, meaning you can wash your hands and then your face.
Okay.
Or you can wash your hands and then, or wash your face and then your hands and then wash your feet and then wipe your head. And the sheikh says, ahyanan, sometimes.
Yeah.
If a person forgets and and there's not a long time in between this and that or something, then he can go back and do it, even if it's not in order. Right? Doesn't mean a person should intentionally go out of order. But if something happens, then, the video that you were watching got good and you forgot, then go back and wipe or whatever. But, you can do this
Okay.
sometimes, but don't make it a habit.
Okay. I
Then he
think in
says,
some, I think here
Fadal.
in some mazhab, it said tartib is a rukun. I think in some mazhabs.
For sure. For sure. Some of
Okay.
that and stuff they say a rukn. The sheikh,
Okay.
he
Okay.
brings he says the sunnah is tartib. He says this. He says the
Okay.
sunnah is tartib. But if a person went outside of that for whatever reason, then it doesn't harm them. And he brings a hadith. I don't remember who it's by right now, but he brings a hadith for this in his discussion of Tamam al-Minna of the fiqh sunnah by Sayyid Sabiq.
Yeah. That's why
Then he says,
I
well,
like. Mm.
go ahead.
Now I was saying that's why I like this book because I'm discovering a lot of things with these classes. Jazakallah khairan.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Then he says right here, he says, وَالْمَسْحُ بِالْمِنْدِيلِ وَالنَّفْضُ الْمَاءِ بَعْدُ الْوُضُوءِ كُلُّهُ مُبَاحٌ. He says, and wiping with a towel, a mindil, a handkerchief, or whatever, some type of towel, right? Drying off basically with a towel, with a towel. وَالنَّفْضُ الْمَاءِ, and naft is to shake it off, like if you do like this and just to get the water off, meaning you don't have to let it drip dry. You can dry off, or you can like squeegee it off with your hand. You can get the water off of your parts like this. After the wudu, all of this is permissible. Some people, they don't allow you to use a towel or to dry off. They drip dry because they use the idea that the sins fall off you with the last drop of water. While this is true, then you're just wiping them off quicker. No problem. It's permissible, right? It's permit. Don't mean you have to. You can let it drip dry. But if you want to dry off, you can. ولا يشرع غسل الداخل العينين في الوضوء. And it is not legislated to wash inside the eyes in wudu. And I'm not going to go too far into it, but one of the early salaf went blind from this.
Oh.
Right? Used to wash inside of his eye sockets. The sheikh says there's no legislation for this. Right? ولا يشرع مس الرقبة في الوضوء. And it is not legislated to wipe the neck. Some people, when they get done wiping the head, they turn their hands around and wipe the neck. This
Oh.
is not legislated in the wudu.
Mm.
ويسن تخليل أصابع الرجلين بالخنصر. And it's the sunnah to go between the toes, the fingers of the foot, the toes. Bil khinsar, with the pinky. To take your pinky and go between the fingers of the foot.
Oh.
ومن يصاب بنزول قطرات من البول. And whoever is affected, whoever is tried or afflicted is a better word, I guess. Whoever is afflicted binuzuli qataratin, by some drops coming down min al bowl, urine. Ba'd al wudu. This is something, some type of condition he has. He used the bathroom, he cleaned himself, and as people get older and older, then they have this problem more and more. They have less control of their bowel movements and bodily functions like this, and their body just doesn't hold as tightly as it does when it's younger. So take advantage of your youth while you can. So whoever's afflicted with these drops that come after urinating, after they made wudu, or whoever is afflicted with these drops of urine after having made wudu, يتوضأ بعد دخول الوقت. Then this person, he's going to make wudu after the time enters, meaning Dhuhr comes in at 11:45. I'm not going to make wudu at 11:30 and go to the masjid. Rather, I'm going to wait till 11:45. When the adhan comes in, then I'm going to make wudu. يتوضأ بعد دخول الوقت. He makes wudu after the time enters. ويصلي, and then he prays. ويسن الانتضاح بعد الوضوء. And it is the sunnah. Let me see what he says here. Give me 1 second. To sprinkle, that's right. To sprinkle the water on your private part. Al-intidah, meaning this is for the person that has these drops that come down. So he makes wudu, and since he might feel this, then it's the sunnah for him to sprinkle his private parts with water after his wudu, and then this way he won't know if the drops come down or water or urine, and he can just say that's just the water falling, and he won't have to be thinking about it. So we'll say, what's that falling on me? Is those drops? No, that's wudu. That's the water that I sprinkled on my private parts dripping. So then he's not thinking the whole time, is that urine? Is that water? Is that urine? That's water. He did it like this.
Okay.
So we're going to call this basically sifatul wudu.
No.
Tayyib. This next section is short. The next 2 sections are short. Even. Nah, we'll just do 9 and 10, inshallah. Al-Fasl Tasi', the 9th fasl, the 9th section. Yusannul wudu'u li kulli salatin. It's the sunnah to make wudu for every salat, even if you have wudu already. It's called tajdeed al-wudu, to renew the wudu. It's not obligatory. You can pray all 5 prayers with 1 wudu, no problem. But the Prophet ﷺ, if I'm not mistaken, the Prophet ﷺ used to do tajdeed al-wudu up until the last few months of his life, and then Umar radiallahu anhu saw him pray all the prayers, I believe during Hajjatul Wada, I believe. But he saw him towards the end of his life make all the prayers with 1 wudu, and he mentioned that to him. And the Prophet ﷺ told him that this is permissible. He's not. But before that, they used to make wudu for every salat, whether they broke wudu or not. It's the sunnah. وَيُسَنُّ الْوُضُوء لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. And it's the sunnah to have wudu if you're going to remember Allah, if you're going to make dhikr, if you're going to come to this class that we're in, that we're studying the religion of Allah, is best for you to have wudu? Do you have to have wudu to sit in this class? No. Is it better? Is it the sunnah? Yes. ويسن الوضوء والقرآن, meaning for the Quran, min bab al-awla. If you're going to recite the Quran, then this is min bab al-awla, means has more right to have wudu than just the dhikr of Allah. And here you find the sheikh, he does not make it obligatory for you to have wudu to touch the mushaf, to recite the Quran. You can be out of wudu according to the opinion of the sheikh.
Okay.
وَبَعْدَ الْقَيْء, and after vomiting, yusanna al-wudu. It's the sunnah to make wudu after vomiting. وَعِنْدَ كُلِّ حَدَث, and every time you break wudu, it's the sunnah to make wudu. Not just to say, oh, it's 5:51 in the morning and Dhuhr doesn't come in until 11 something, so I'm not going to make wudu until then. No, it's the sunnah every time you break wudu, make wudu.
Okay.
وَمِنْ حَمْلِ الْمَيِّتِ, and if you carry a dead person, you carry him to the grave. وَمِمَّنْ مَسَتِ النَّارِ, and from what fire has touched, meaning if you eat food that has been cooked on fire, right? Meaning direct fire, right? Like when you put meat on over into the fire on the grill or whatever, right? It's the sunnah to do this. Now, it used to be obligatory to make wudu from whatever fire touched. Whatever fire touched, it was obligatory to make wudu. And then that was abrogated. So the sheikh, he says that the fact that it was abrogated does not deny the fact that it's still the sunnah. And he says, وَيُسَنُّ الْوُضُوء liman arada an-nawm, and it's the sunnah to make wudu for the one who wants to go to sleep. وَيُسَنُّ الْوُضُوء لِلْجُنُب, and it's the sunnah to make wudu for the one who is in a state of sexual impurity. إِذَا أَرَادَ أَن يُجَامِيَ مَرَّةً أُخْرَى, if he wants to have sex another time. So he wouldn't just go back and have sex 2 times in a row, rather he'd make wudu in between. This is the sunnah. وَيُسَنُّ فَضَى.
Ustad, I have a question here. If you want to go to and make wudu when you are in junub position, in that case, you can say tasmiyah, because I thought...
yes. And the sheikh is going to go through that, inshallah, in a minute.
Okay, I jumped the gun. Okay, thank you.
Inshallah, he's going to go through it in a minute, in section 10, in a quick minute. وَيُسَنُّ الْوُضُوء لِلْجُنُبِ إِذَا أَرَادَ أَن يُجَامِيَ مَرَّةً أُخْرَى, and it's the sunnah to make wudu if he wants to have sex another time. وَيُسَنُّ الْمُحَافَظَةُ عَلَى الْوُضُوء, and it's the sunnah to stay in wudu. Al-muhafadha, to be in wudu always. And we can understand this. وَإِنْدَ كُلِّ حَدَثٍ, and every time he breaks wind, every time he uses the bathroom, all this stuff, it's the sunnah, right? وَلَا يُشْرَعُ الْوُضُوءُ قَبْلَ الطَّعَامِ وَلَا بَعْدَهُ, and it is not legislated to make wudu before eating or afterwards. Some people might say it's the sunnah to make wudu before you eat or after you eat. This is not the case. This section we'll call
Sunnah of wudu.
Mawadi yusanna al-wudu, or something like this, right? The places where it is recommended to make wudu, right? The places where it's recommended to make wudu. Then for al-fasl ashir, the 10th fasl, and the last one for us for today, inshallah. He says, وَيُكْرَهُ ذِكْرُ اللَّهِ, and it is disliked to remember Allah. وَقِرَاءَةُ الْقُرْآنِ, and reciting the Quran. عَلَى غَيْرِ طَهَارَةٍ, not having tahara is disliked. Doesn't mean it's haram, but it's disliked. وَتُبَاحُ, and it's permissible. قِرَاءَةُ الْقُرْآنِ لِلْجُنُبِ وَلِلْحَائِدِ, and it's permissible to recite the Quran for the one who's in sexual defilement, as well as the woman who is in her having her menses. Now, reciting the Quran for the junub is against the Hanbali madhab, and I'm sure probably the other madhab as well, although I haven't studied them in detail. The majority of our scholars today say that this is against the the you cannot recite Quran while you are in a state of sexual impurity. However, the Sheikh, he says, if I go here, I want to go back first. He says what he was asked, the Sheikh, he was asked what happens if a person doesn't say Bismillah before wudu and it's obligatory on him. What does he do? He forgot to say wudu. Does that mean his wudu is not acceptable? I believe the Hanafis say this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab said it as well. You have to say the Bismillah, the Tasmiyah.
Mm.
He said there's nothing upon him if he forgets, because Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Rabbana la tu'akhidna in nasina or akhta'na. Right? There's nothing upon him because Allah said, our Lord, do not take us or hold us to account if we forget or fall into error. So here he shows that this is, if you forget to say the Bismillah, no problem. As for this one here, the dalil that he used for this here, tubah qira'atul Quran lil junub lil ha'id, and this is because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to say, or he used to, the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to remember Allah in all his conditions, and the Quran is from the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the Quran is from the dhikr of Allah. Inna anzalna dhikr. He says, indeed, we sent down the dhikr. So if it's permissible to remember Allah in the Quran is the remembrance of Allah, then it's permissible. Although it is makruh and it is sunnah to have wudu, it's permissible to do so. Right? With that, we'll conclude tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. After 2 days. We got some really good points, inshallah, that we're going to bring again. I can guarantee that most people will find it amazing that the Sheikh held some of these opinions, and we got some big ones coming up, inshallah.
Inshallah.
As always, I thank everybody. Thank you for coming in, Masao. It really helps. Just talking into the screen is kind of difficult. You know, I don't get any feedback. You being in here at least gives me some type of back and forth. It's nice. The link is always in the comment section for those who want to come in and join us. For the men, for the brothers, of course. So, and if anybody wants to type a question, then we get it live during the dars. Inshallah, we'll see you Yom al-Ahad in the morning, which would be Yom al-Sabt for some of you. Sunday morning for anyone east of Africa, right? Anyone east of London. If you're in America side, then you'll be Saturday night. We'll see you then, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.